morning, everyone. Richard Miller, and welcome to Never Not Here. And one of our favorite activities, let's say. And I'm just loving it. And I'm getting some emails that people said, I just discovered open mic, and boy, you guys are so real. And, it just feels like I can really relate to it. And that's how I've always felt. I've always felt that open mic is a real great value. So let's just go for it. So please help me welcome Burma Cassidy. So thanks, Burma. Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to spend time with you.
Well, I agree. It's a pleasure to spend time with you, and somehow I never take it too seriously. I suppose some people want to tell me how I'm doing it wrong, but a lot of people are trying to tell me what a great guy I am, and I don't think it's gone to my head yet. So it doesn't really feel like I'm in danger of that. But something about dialogue, something about just being close to your fellow man. I mean, a lot of us are from some kind of secret traditions. We know that when we're in a group that there's a feeling, and there can be a feeling, let's say. And, of course, it's easy to ascribe to some master or some situation, but maybe it's just who we are, really.
Yeah, being present is coming up for me a lot lately, and that's what I am discovering and rediscovering, because it's not something new. I've been on this path for a long time, over 40 years, and I've had glimpses, and now the glimpses are starting to get bigger, more, I don't know, it's just like a knocking at the door. There's a knocking at my door, and I seem to be answering it more and more, if you get my drift.
I'm just kind of thinking that you're meaning like, okay, you're saying sometimes the glimpses seem to be getting bigger, but they're just seeming to be more natural, right? Like, this is no biggie. This is just like what life is.
Well, I've always had a very active mind and been very curious and questioned a lot. And my mind seems to be slowing down. It could be my age, not sure. But I just feel like, I don't know whether I'm seeing through things now more quickly. I don't get so caught up in the story or the dream. It all seems to be becoming more apparent to me that I have the answers. I mean, I've kind of always known I held the answers for myself, but it's just becoming more and more apparent that, and I don't mean the I like the big ego, I have the answer, not that I'm, a big person, but that the answers are with me all the time, something like that. And what I love about Never Not Here is that there are other people talking about this, and it's a confirmation. It's an acknowledgement that I can resonate with. And I can be here in this little village so far away, but I feel connected. So
it's amazing. That part is amazing, that we can just be with each other from all over the world. And I guess you're in a small village in Vermont.
Right. A river valley town surrounded by mountains.
So then that's what we would all call paradise, right?
It is. You know what? I do know. I am grateful. I have deep gratitude. This has been a beautiful gift for me. I knew I came home and it feels like home. It's my home in the phenomenal world. So I'm a,
Sometimes I think because okay, you said, man, I must have had a very active mind, or I've always had a very active mind.
yeah,
And then we're giving the thought process tendencies and saying, well, it runs like this, or it runs like that, or, our mind's slow. But in a way, I mean, it might just be doing its duty on the basis of a certain belief structure. Like if you are insisting in your life, there must be something more. There
yeah,
must be something more. It's like giving your mind a ticket to go out and find it. My gosh, you're my servant, aren't you? And he's going to be really active and really, really trying to turn up something more for you. And
yeah. I think you're right. Yeah,
and when you start to say, well, gosh, this life is pretty good, this is really pretty good, then your mind goes, whoosh. I think I must have found what you wanted.
yeah. I should probably give a little gold star out there for that.
Yeah, I'd say, mind, you really got me in a good place.
Yeah, but it's also gotten me into a lot of twists and turns. I mean, it hasn't just been a straight run. It's been like a maze or one of those I forget what they're called, those mazes that you go through and then there's dead
Right,
ends and you have
right,
to
right, right. Yeah,
a
like
labyrinth
a
or something
labyrinth is
like
what
that.
they call it, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I've had a lot of those. A lot. So there is something to the idea of getting exhausted and giving up and like that surrender, like, okay, I'm done. I've just had it. I'm done. I've reached that point too, is coming a lot. I feel done. I feel I can let go of thinking that somebody else has my answer.
I'll bet anything that's what we're doing in Never Not Here, because when we get so many people talking, it's not like at first a mental process tries to categorize and be a librarian and get everything and make everything add up, and those things that don't add up get discarded, and
Yeah.
it's trying to really distill the truth, the essence of truth out of here. And I think we've gone to overkill. We've broken the system, and most people probably get involved with Never Not Here, and then they say, "Oh no, I mean, I can't follow all these guys."
Well, it's like I don't know. Sometimes you can do research and you can find sources of information, and then you try to kind of merge them so that they all fit together in some body. And I'm kind my mind is kind of doing that a little bit. Like I'm listening to different people and I'm seeing where it overlaps. There's no I. There's no thoughts aren't real. My hand isn't here. Nothing is happening. There's nowhere to go. It's like, I mean, last night when I went to bed, I just said it's mumbo jumbo. I may as well be saying mumbo jumbo or Coca-Cola, or it's like people are talking, and so everyone's using words, and all words are limited, and people are saying things, and I think it's all swirling around the same thing. But I feel it like closing in,
Yeah.
I feel, yeah,
Not closing in like a gremlin gonna get you, but more or less like coming home is what you're saying,
yeah,
right?
yeah, definitely,
Right.
definitely. I feel more free now than I have ever felt.
I,
More
I I agree. I feel more free now than that's my testimony too. I mean,
good.
I'm younger than the teenagers.
Well, I don't know about that free. I don't. I mean, I wouldn't want to be a teenager today, to be honest with you. But that aside, I just feel free. I don't know, free inside. There's something,
Something lifted.
yeah, like I can take a deep breath, like a sigh, like, oh, finally, I'm I'm done with that.
Yeah, and for no cause, right? There's no cause to it. It's not an effect of anything, really, I don't believe. If anything, like you said, just getting tired or
Yeah,
just seeing the light that none of this has led to anywhere.
right. I I'm grateful. I'm grateful I didn't like fall off a cliff
Yeah.
sometimes because
Let me say that over again because I said none of this has led anywhere, but really it has. It's led here, and of course I was always here anyhow. But I mean, none of it. What did I mean by that? None of this is led. I mean, a lot of experiences happened, of course. I mean, and those were nice, but they were not really like trying to prolong those experiences or trying to control them or manipulate them. Really wasn't where it was at.
oh, I'm really clear that I couldn't control a lot. I mean, stuff happened that I could never have orchestrated. Even though I had an intention to do certain things, other things happened that were completely out of my control. I'm very clear that we have very little control and very little choice in the way things play out.
Yeah, and and when you said even though I was wanting to control, but I mean even though wanting to control, also I was thinking I was doing it. Yeah, I am.
Sure.
Of course, I'm in control. Oh, but this time
Right.
it went
Yeah.
wrong. Why did you keep
Right.
going wrong at that one point? I don't get it. Oh boy.
Yeah.
There's a feeling to all that too, and sometimes that feeling gets pretty intense, and sometimes that feeling really creates a life mood, like some kind of a mood. Okay, so a lot of people are angry, for instance, and they have a life mood of anger. Other people are kind of like slowed down or listless, or they don't believe in anything, or they're what should we say? They're resigned to everything, and that's a life mood too.
Yeah, I think a, a, a key seed in that is blame. I think a lot of people want to blame situations or parents or somehow not
Politicians or governments or
right. Yeah, that if it weren't for this,
for
then
them, the famous
right,
them, right? And them are the
right,
famous ones that do everything, and they are the ones that should do everything right. Finally,
right, and they're just messing up my world, and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I was kind of driving it, this the sensation part of all this control and all this kind of belief in a life that I my free will, I have to make wise choices, and of course there's choices that appear. But I mean, I'm just saying somehow my level of force on that creates these moods in a way. And then these moods seem like very real and seem to be related to my activity or lack of activity or my capacity to so-called get into trouble or get into weird places. And
What are you talking about? Can you be
I'm just
specific?
trying to talk about the moods, the moods meaning like, I mean, being depressed for a while or
But
being.
yeah,
Where does
I
that come from? I'm just saying, well, what's the key of that? Where does that come from?
I think we start telling ourselves stories, about ourselves, about other people, about what's going on, and we start believing them. We keep running those same stories over and over again until it gets dark. And and the other thing that I think is really true is that there is such a thing as a chemical imbalance in the brain. And I do think that some people have chemical imbalance, and that plays a part in
Hmm.
depression, especially.
Could that be the story that creates the chemical, that creates the imbalance? I mean, you're telling yourself a story.
Um,
and over again. And you were talking about a story that kind of gets narrower and narrower because it must constrict or must limit
I
itself.
think it can work both ways. Uh, I think if you have certain deficiencies in your system, your physical system, um, you
Well,
can
even
develop,
like your diet.
you could develop diabetes, let's say. You know,
Hmm.
I think there's some chemical things that happen that can be out of balance. And I do think, people have allergies. And people do have these things before they have labeled it and thought about it, especially children. I mean, they're not telling themselves a story necessarily. That's what I'd say about my mind. It's like then I could go and want to do research on this and figure it all out, but I'm kind of moving away from all that. Just trying to be more present, Richard. I am being more present, not just the word try is an old word. It's so funny, but I feel like I know you and I don't even know you. It's just sort of like there's this something connection that comes from being in the present. So it's a recognition, I guess.
That was actually kind of like the basis of this whole series, open mic. That something about something mad. What are to discover the barriers? What are barriers that make us that separate us? And are they really natural, or is it something that can collapse at a moment's notice? And we started saying something like the barriers are a reflection of expectations. And when I expect something from you and you expect something from me, or even just one of us, then the other one has to have, it's just automatic, some kind of a defense comes up. Even when we think we agree, still there's a defense that just checks it out and says, do I really want to give this? This guy wants something. And then right away, that's a layer of separation.
Mm-hmm.
And we were kind of marveling that with this open mic series, at least I was always feeling like within 15, 20 minutes, I feel like this is my 30-year-old friend or my brother or my sister or somebody I've known my whole life.
Yeah. Yeah. Barriers, I don't know. Barriers for me can come from judgments, things I like, I don't like. But I have found from having done so many groups and been involved in so many things that when you let those barriers down, you end up just feeling very close and connected, and the barriers are gone, and it can happen easily. It's not that difficult. But I've done a lot of groups, and I've done.
No, I agree that it's easy, And then a good question that I don't know, because we used to have a belief. I would say used to, but I mean I don't really have the belief anymore that somehow getting that kind of a taste would be useful and that would rub off on your life. Having the taste of that time with limited barriers, or watching the barriers go up and down, so you could say, gee, they must be arbitrary. They're not fixed anyhow. Somehow I can relax on them. Somehow they can.
This time when I went to India, I noticed that I was so free of putting up barriers around situations because I was in a living situation with people I didn't know, and there could have been disagreements about how things were done, and it it moved fast. It just moved. The issue came up. There was a kind of a little tension thing, and then it moved off, and it just was very fast. And I saw, wow, 10 years ago it would have taken me days to get through that, and it just went quickly, and I was able to like turn it all around. And so instead of having a tension with this person, I just saw them completely differently, so that there was a real exchange, heart to heart exchange. It was nice.
I think it's just coming out of presence, in other words, without a preconception and without a grudge. Those are the two ththings that prolong it for days, like it should be this way. Well, it's not being this way. Well, it wasn't this way. Well, why did they do that to me? Go on from both sides of it. That's the prolong. But just the presence itself just says, oh, something came up. Oh, ideas, here's thoughts. Oh, well, let's just fix it. Oh, well, that's it. Is that good enough for you? Good enough for me.
I think that's true, the barriers, but I have to admit that there are issues that I'm holding on to from the past that I haven't resolved. And some may never be resolved because I don't know what happened to those people. They disappeared out of my life.
Yeah, I think that that's why. Well, I think when you say they'll never be resolved, maybe that should be like that's the key, actually.
What do you mean?
Well, the whole idea of resolving them is like a bondage. Just it's gone. It's not here anymore. If they cross your path, then you can say, "Hi, I've always loved you. What's been going on with you?" But if they don't come back, then forget it. Because that's just, where does that come from anyhow? It's just an image.
Maybe you can go up to someone who you've had a disagreement with if they come back across your path and say, "Hi, I've always loved you." But I don't know.
Well, in a way that you didn't understand, and maybe I didn't understand it either, but I was always fascinated with you. Let's say it that way then. Because you could even be fascinated with how much you're in turmoil.
Yeah, right.
Well, if it keeps coming up, it's a fascination in a way, right? It could be either a morbid fascination or a loving fascination.
I'm going to have to carry around your Richard Miller's dictionary with me of words to use in sticky situations. Because, not everybody's ready to meet you.
Oh, God, anyway, for 30 years ago or something like that, how could you possibly have a grudge for 30 years, You'd have to hug that person. Whoa, we really went through it, didn't we?
Yeah, okay. But, I live in a small community, and that's a good way of learning about yourself, because other people reflect back to you where you're coming from, and it can be challenging for me at times, because we're all human, and we all have different times when we're more open and less open, and more receptive and less receptive, and things can be misinterpreted and taken, and then you're not, I could hear you say something, and is it really what you meant, or is it what I filtered through and heard?
Some images we kind of really believe. And a strong one for me was always feeling like I was blocked by somebody, or if somebody was. I never really worked in a large structure or in a large corporation, or I never really had to be subject to very much protocol. I was just maybe spontaneous. And so then even now when it comes up that things don't flow the way I would see that they could, my belief is that they could flow really fast, and maybe they don't. And then I could tell a story about that and have a feeling about that, like I was being held back, or
Right.
somehow I was at the effect of some, and it's a natural story. If I could do something in a day and yet I need different permissions and people aren't available to give them, and it takes a month or even longer. Maybe after a month, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And I said, I could have done this in a couple of hours, actually. And it's a really impelling story. It's a great story that makes me feel like, oh, oof.
I think that's why Byron Katie's questioning, is this the truth? Do you know that this is true? What your interpretation of what happened is very helpful. It helps break up the story you tell yourself.
Right, that's kind of the trail I'm on. That what we react to in the world is our interpretation of it.
Right. Yeah, I heard you you say to Neelam, I think you were talking about Hollywood movies bother you.
Yeah, right, I was really.
Is that a story?
Oh, yeah, of course. She was telling me that that's a story, and that in my reaction to it is not at all helpful.
Yeah.
Like I think it could be, my perplexity to it, feeling, I just have this belief that, you can't make a movie without anxiety and without some kind of violence, whether it's physical or whether it's some kind of mental anguish, or there has to be a problem to overcome in order to make what Hollywood considers a formula that will be accepted and exciting. And it's a kind of like an emotional roller coaster ride is what a movie's all about. To me, it's all cheap shots, and then I don't want to be involved with it. But I mean, right, that's a story that definitely an interpretation, and it gives me a feeling, see? And I can make another interpretation, like Neelam suggested, that if I want to make something, some improvement to the situation, or add something to it, the last thing that I should add is my anxiety about it. That's
right.
That's actually a subtraction, or just making it worse.
Yeah.
And so that's another interpretation, see? And I can react differently to that. I can say, oh, well, then that's that heavy feeling doesn't, and that clamping down on my body doesn't come when I have that other story. Now, that particular story is not so much about the activity of making movies, but more about, it's a story about my reaction to it, and whether it's effective or whether it's just the same problem, which is adding anxiety into the world.
Yeah, I was listening to Neelam, and I've been listening to your days with Margot Riddler, and your sessions with her, and I do have the I, which I know there's no I that exists. But I do have this sense of that reality, in quotes, is a blank screen, or the nothingness, or something like that. And so bringing that back to what Neelam is saying is that the I is holding on to an idea of what presence is. And I don't know, there's something that I haven't really fully integrated, because I do have the experience of being just emptiness. And I have the experience of sitting here in a body talking to you and hearing my voice. So the thought comes to me about bringing yourself into presence, and how we separate ourselves out of being this empty screen, which I know we are. When Margot tore apart those bits off the cone and there was just like that little ring left, and she put her hand through and she said, this is what it is. This is doing everything. This, I get it. I get that. I do. It's like, it's just such a relief. At the same time, I still carry around little bits of the pink cone. They're still attached of issues that I have, It's like I have likes, I have dislikes, or you could call it preferences if you want to get more refined about it, but still, fears, and reactions to those as well.
And another thing you have is expectations.
Well, yeah, I guess I expect my car to be parked outside after I leave it.
No, but also you have an expectation that maybe you wouldn't have those issues, that it would be just space, and that somehow that by knowing yourself as space and having had that experience in the past, that knowing would be always here, and that it would be stronger than the issues that show up within that knowing. And
well,
then that's an expectation in a way, right?
I don't know. I haven't looked at it with that word expectation, because it's also new to me. So I haven't really had time to have it solidify into an expectation. I'm just, I'm just having these like insights, a lot of insights in a short period of time, relatively short period of time. So I don't know what to say. It's like, I'm speechless. It's like, sometimes.
Well, that's really cool to have a lot of insights in a short period of time, and it means that you're willing to let them in too. You're willing to, and maybe it means also where does an insight come from? Because I think an insight doesn't come from an old thought or an old insight. It doesn't necessarily come from an old insight, but it comes from a clear space. Somehow insights spring out of like a field or a knowing. We've called it knowing field before, or something like. Not really, because thoughts always follow, kind of develop a new thought. One thought comes after another in a chain, and they're all related and kind of like have the same limitation because they're all in the same context.
Yeah.
And so then they tend to go around and around a lot because you can't really get out of that context. It could be like one of those cones. So you're in a conceptual context and you get thoughts in there, and those thoughts are like it runs you around the walls of that cone and never outside of it. And until you can rest, which Neelam called and she said suffering was the inability to rest here and now.
Mm-hmm.
And so then from that resting field, then insights come. So you're saying that you're having a lot of insights and pretty fast, relatively pretty fast. So then I would say that that was evidence that you're resting. You're able to rest. Rest means just rest your attention. And you could use a jargon word, you could say rest in presence, but
Yeah.
I mean, it just means rest means like in completeness too. You could just call it
Yeah.
completeness because if you're not searching for something, that's what presence is basically. But it's a completeness or it's a wholeness, more of a wholeness, let's say. It's not such an anxiety about needing this and needing that and not being complete here and needing a healing here and needing a quieter mind and needing a space where thoughts don't bring up issues. They're going to bring up issues, and then even somehow the belief in those issues is important because the belief in those issues means you're really interested in them. Let's get this one right. Let's get this straight. I've been really struggling with this all my life when I look at it. So I'm really interested, because if I could put an end to this now, whoa, that would be great. So that's an interest, And so then as long as that interest is there, that issue is getting juice. And then that mind is going to try to go around it left and right and up and over. Let's try this, let's try that. It's very obedient. It's a really good tool. But it's just following your interest, And then
there's been a compulsion, I could say, to be free, to find that freedom. And you could say freedom from suffering, but
yeah, okay. She's using that word suffering, and which kind of like means, it's a whole big thing. But she's just having a very simple definition of suffering, which is not allowing the ability to rest.
Right.
And so then that means that's the wanderlust. Wanderlust of the mind is what suffering is. And so then that's a really nice definition of suffering.
Yeah, I think so too. It completely eliminates story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not about this or not about that situation. She was saying it's not about events that come in your life. It's not about challenging people that come in your life. It's not about circumstances. It's not about illness or lack of illness.
Right.
It's just about inability of rest. And so whatever those things are that cause you to wander, which is like an immense interest in in an idea called things could be different.
Yeah. What I sense could happen, at least with me, I don't know about other people, is that I could develop a cone about freedom. I could create a cone.
Right on. But we've been told that too, The teachings have told you really be concerned about that and really give it all your intention, they said.
Yeah.
And then that sounds like intention sounds like it could be stressful. You got to force it or really try hard or something like that. And so then it's saying that, so many seekers are anxious people and they're using anxiety as their seeking tool. And we're actually told that that's a good idea, but I don't think it is. But I mean, use your sincerity, but not your seriousness. Use your sincerity, but not your seriousness.
Yeah. I can honestly say I don't know why things happen. I'm more with Margot. I think there's just this stuff and we don't really have as much choice as we think we do. And yet some people end up with teachers who are very serious and they want their followers to be serious. And some people end up with teachers who are very playful and, play the fool and tell jokes and, that. And so, I mean.
So then you could switch. You go on the serious path when you feel you're serious. And then when you think, oh, God, this guy's really too serious. He's overdoing it, isn't he? But I mean, I wouldn't even go near seriousness anymore.
Well,
for the King of Siam or for anyone else, I wouldn't go.
I'm with you right now. I've always found humor to be a key that unlocks a lot of issues very fast. It just cuts through stuff, because
Well, not only humor, because like I'm just calling seriousness is like neediness. I need something. It's a metaphor for being constricted and limited, an original sinner, and all that kind of stuff. And then you got to be serious in order to kind of to break that. But the whole thing is the same formula. It's called worry
I
and anxiety.
yeah, I have been it, I have sought in so many places from so many different people, different teachers, and my experience has been that people are very serious about getting the answer for themselves to become quote unquote enlightened or liberated, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it. They get so serious that, I don't know, becomes a problem.
Yeah. Well, my notion is that's the only thing that's blocking their awakening. That seriousness is the the wall that's in front of the veil that's in front of this enlightened state. That is actually it, and that not one of those serious persons ever broke through that wall. Not one.
When I hear you say that, I I I sense some judgment, and I don't mean to sound like I'm judging people. So I just want to clarify that I'm
Well, I
not.
mean, okay, you can use a language and say that nobody ever got it. I'm sure, but it's just the antithesis of what they're searching for. So I mean, it can't. Nobody ever. Anxiety is not enlightenment, and there's no way that it can contain it. And it's the antithesis of it. It's actually 180 degrees opposite. And so then it's pretty easy to say that nobody got it, even without knowing them.
Yeah, yes, you can make a
When you
make
realize
it.
that, when you realize what is the closure, what is closing me off from my ever-present beingness? It's an idea that I've got to get serious, and that there's something I'm missing, and that I got to get it.
Yeah, you seem serious right now, Richard.
Yeah, right. But I don't believe in it. I can act it out, but I don't believe in it, that it's gonna, and then it's effective. You know.
You don't take. Do you take yourself seriously?
No, I have a lot of opportunities, and I try to do my best. Now, whatever that means. I mean, I try to actually do what I consider my best, which is probably very conditioned, and then I try to back off of that too when I see that. I mean, it's kind of narrow, and then I just try to say what will happen without knowing, and I could actually just give the whole thing up, which is kind of like a reaction for sure, or just I don't know what, just see what happens. And like,
Well, I've found, because I do artwork, that I've gone through various stages, and I'm now at a stage where I know that the whatever I create is created through me. It's not because of what I want, or I have to make it a certain way to be acceptable. I just allow. So when I start doing any artwork, I might have an idea, but then it just takes off on its own, and it just goes its own way, and it's like I follow it. So
so that's a great
it's
experience. So then you can get a proof in a way, like you can
it
get a
is
proof
it
that you're not even there. That things are
it
just
is
happening. Because it's a proof that like you can't. I mean, I never would have even visualized this thing in a
It
million
is.
years, and there it is.
It is. It's like when I finish something, I look at it and say, "Oh my God, where did that come from?" It's like, how did that happen? I know I did it, and I know the time and effort that I put into it. And, I'll see something, it doesn't look right, and I have to keep experimenting. And it's, it is a confirmation, a direct experience and a confirmation that there's something that happens that I cannot explain. Has nothing to do with me, the person.
Sometimes writers say that, or people that say they channel. They're saying, well, that has nothing to do with me. And,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Although
Writers can say that book just poured out of me in a couple of weeks.
Yes. Yeah.
My fingers did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without a thing in my mind, my fingers typed that out. Something like
Yeah.
that, Whereas they're just certain it's a gift.
Yeah. Well, I'm certain I have a gift, or that a gift comes through me.
You've received many gifts.
It's not a habit. I don't own it. It's not mine. I don't possess. It's just something that happens, and I'm drawn over and over again to do this.
Right. Just think of this, and we get a lot of testimony, because apparently what awakening is people can just look at their life and see that that's a gift too, and they can just be just as sure as you're sure on your artwork. They can just be that sure on their life, that their life is a gift and that they're not doing it. Now, I mean, how is that?
That's profound.
Yeah, how is that? I mean, what holds us back from seeing that part? Because even, for instance, I would say that I've seen a gift too just in Never Not Here, let's say.
Yeah.
And it just is kind of a thing that unfolded by itself.
Yeah.
And then can I see that in my life too? Sometimes I think I'm starting to see that in all of life. And that's kind of like, I mean, if what holds us back? We've got a explanation of what our life is, and somehow we've slowed it down to slow enough so that we can claim it. And maybe if it went faster, like if we said yes more often, and we allowed ourselves to be swept away more often, then we'd realize that we're not doing it.
Yeah, I think you have to get out of your comfort zone to know this stuff. You have to get out of your illusion that you're controlling everything. Like, traveling is a great way to experience that you're not in charge of everything. Going to foreign countries, and at least that I've had.
Yeah, I'll bet you. Even when you went, even the idea to go to India probably is like on a way something that possesses you. Like you just say, "No, I'm going to India. I don't know why." Yeah.
Oh my God!
Now I got a ticket. I don't know where. Where did I get that money?
Oh my gosh! Yes.
And so you're not doing that, And then of course when you get there, whoa.
Yeah, and to go back. I mean, it's like I went back. The first time I went, I fell in love with India. The second time I went, I fell out of love with India. The third time I went, I was kind of neutral, and the fourth time I went, was just being there, being more present with what is, and I think that's why my trip was so much mellower. I just accepted whatever presented itself. In general, I mean, there were some things that I had a hard time with because of my phobias. But
I remember actually something with me, it was like I was 25, let's say, and I wasn't really in this kind much of a spiritual seeker, but I was still reading things. I might have read Krishnamurti and other kind of things too. In fact, I remember what I was reading there. There was Well, anyhow, I mean, I remember something I was reading. It was kind of like, and I was, I went to Europe. I was 25 and I bought a motorcycle and started kicking around. And I was just getting this thing like, I was saying, my God, like about, I was counting the time. I was saying like half the time somebody takes me in, you know, like somebody, like life just adjusts itself and somebody takes me in. And half the time I'm just kind of like on my own, really alone,
Yeah.
really alone. And so I was counting the time though and saying like, oh, like I'm 50% there. I was thinking like, oh, I'm like Jesus, you know, they just take me in. I didn't think I was spiritual or anything like that, but I mean, I was just thinking like life takes care of me, but I didn't really interpret it that way. I was noting it though. I was really noting it and saying, whoa, what? How about that? Just life takes care of me. And I was noting that I wasn't doing it, but I wasn't really saying that to myself and really, I didn't have that idea that I'm not the doer or anything like that. I mean, but I noticed the magic of it.
Yeah. I've had so many magical moments traveling. Such gifts. I mean, people being there for me. And I want to do that too for other people when they're traveling. I just have such a sense of being in the adventure.
So you can participate in traveling just by being the host, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I just feel so drawn to foreignness. It's such a gift.
So now I'm
Yeah,
doing that too. I'm doing it with the internet though. I'm doing it just like we're doing it now.
I know.
So then that's kind of amazing. I want to really open it up more and more, at least to English speaking worlds.
Well, yeah, and you could get people who speak other languages who could do things too.
I know Italian.
There you go.
But
Well,
my audience doesn't.
well, you might go to an Italian audience.
Right.
Yeah, why not? No, I think what you're doing is aiding in people's transitioning into more awareness.
I think what I'm, even trying to do maybe is just uh, foster a realization that connection is kind of like connecting with people is easy, and it's just second nature, and it's not a really big deal. Like you have to know somebody a long time or be in a certain special group or
Yeah.
uh, you know and something also about doership, like am I really doing my life or am I being cared for? And somehow it seems like I'm in control and I'm a doer and I'm knowledgeable and all these things as long as I keep saying no, because I'm the author of no, and if I and yes probably isn't even a word, it's just the absence of saying no. And then that's when this absence of saying no, then the me more or less dissolves, and then miracles happen. And I wouldn't even call it a yes anymore, because I was saying like, because it takes a me to say yes. But I'm
Mm.
saying it only takes a me to say no, and then if that me
Hmm.
disappears and that no disappears with it, then life takes on a different momentum. And something, I don't know what it is, there's some comfort level that allows this to happen, that allows the no's to start to subside and just say,
I think it has to do with trust. Trusting the great unknown or whatever you want to call it. But there's a trust that you'll be okay. No matter what happens, you'll be okay.
Right, even without knowing what that okay is, right? Because I mean, if you have
Right.
to know what it is, then the trust is hard to come by. you got to get
Yeah.
you got to get a
Yeah.
5-star guarantee.
I mean, we live in such a crazy world. Sometimes I just can laugh at it all, and other times I'm completely caught up in it. It's like, we better get insurance and we have to, you know, think about this. And what about the future? And what about, God, all this stuff, which is kind of a joke because we really don't know. But there are times when I get caught, in that kind of narrow, untrusting thought. I'm not going to be okay. What if? The big what if. The mind loves to play what if, you know. Yeah.
It seems
I
like there's two parts of life, because one part is a mental construction, and everybody's doing it, and that's how we take on our personalities and our roles and our families, and
yeah.
and it really, these are conceptual things, and another part of life maybe just unfolds, maybe out of those concepts it unfolds, and it's really created by our thoughts in that part, and so then we think that our thoughts are just there to prepare us for what's really true and what's out there and what's, what we have to make ourselves adequate to. And
Right.
we think that our thoughts will help us to prepare for that and be ready no matter what happens. I mean, I used to think of violent thoughts, and then I would think, oh yeah, well, if anyone ever attacks me, I'll have a preconceived way to defend myself, right?
You always vanquished.
Yeah, and so then probably if I had that thought, probably I would make a defensive move or an offensive move, and then I would create that in the other person, would just create it.
Yeah, I've had fantasies about, someone broke into the house, what I would do. And, I always come out the winner, I'm always like the survivor of some whatever, but it's doesn't happen.
Thank God. Thank
Thank
God
God
that
it's
thank God it's delayed, Like if you say your thoughts create your world, thank God there's a little bit of delay there because otherwise I would have had some pretty horrendous situations really
oh my
quick.
goodness, really. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah.
I guess there can be some kind of a detachment, that doesn't take thoughts too seriously. Because even some people, were saying that enlightenment is a concept, and they were talking about some very clear people that said, enlightenment? What's enlightenment? But all I know is it's been 40 years since I believed one of my thoughts.
Yeah, that reminds me I've I believe that I have experienced enlightened people who had nothing to do with any spiritual seeking at all. I had a neighbor who was a farmer, and I always sensed that he was enlightened. And he lived very simply, did his farming, and but there was something about him. I would look in his eyes, and they would be vast. I can't even explain it, but it's just something that I think was my experience is true. I can't prove it.
Yeah, maybe it's something about, okay, let's say this guy just was on the earth a lot and somehow his energy system was really, really well balanced. Walking around on his earth and considering, the topsoil and the
Oh, and
plant life
he had tons of cats that he fed in the barn, and I mean, I don't know, not that that says anything about being enlightened, but just the whole thing. I knew him before I even knew that there was a word enlightenment. And then once I heard what an enlightened being would be like, I thought that was an enlightened being,
mm.
you know. So who knows? you know? Could be anybody. I don't remember where I heard this or read this, but you could walk down the street and say, "Is it you? Is it you? Is it you?" It could be anybody. Why not?
Some story of somebody walking with a lantern day and night, right?
Yeah,
Looking for an honest man.
right.
So you're looking for an enlightened one.
Or yeah, if you want to open yourself up to the possibility that about what enlightenment looks like, it could, I mean, if you really want to open your dam of ideas and just let it go, man, anybody, could be anybody.
I used to just say this about gurus and disciples, especially about, where these disciples just really are doing really heavy duty bhakti and really just love this one guy.
Yeah.
And I used to say that somehow a guru sees enlightenment in everyone, and a disciple sees enlightenment only in his guru. And somehow, if there's a path to becoming more awakened, then you would see enlightenment more and more everywhere.
Yes. That reminds me, years ago when I was just beginning to search, I went into one system, and there was an Indian guru, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a photo of an Indian guru. It was all new to me. And I felt an immediate repulsion of the whole idea that someone could have an Indian guru. And so I told the person who was running this group, I said, I don't feel a really good connection with the guru. And she said, well, you should write to him. I thought, wow, I don't know if I could do that. But anyway, that night I had this dream. And I dreamt that I went to India with a friend. I had never been to India, and I had no desire to go to India. But in my dream, there I was with my friend in India, standing in line to see the guru. And the guru's assistant came out to collect the gifts that people had brought for the guru. And I noticed that people were giving gifts, and then the assistant was giving back better gifts. So if somebody gave $10, the assistant gave that person $20. And so the assistant said, I don't know if the assistant said this, but it became apparent to me that you were going to get back more than what you gave. So I'm standing in line, and my friend goes in to see the guru, and I'm waiting, and there's an exit away from the line, and I'm next, so I go in, and I stand there, and I look at the guru, and I'm looking into his eyes, and he's looking at me, and he said, "Oh, welcome back." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Welcome back." I said, "No, this is my first trip to India." He said, "Oh, no, this is not your first trip." I said, "Yes, it's my first trip. I know it's my first trip. I have never been to India before." He said, "No, this is not your first trip." And I looked at him. I was very annoyed. And I looked into his eyes. And as I was looking into his eyes, I suddenly had this realization that I was looking into my own eyes. And I woke up. And that was my dream.
That's an amazing dream. My gosh.
Dream. That was so long ago, Richard. That happened so long ago. And it took me a long, long time to finally begin to understand what that dream was saying. No. And I did go to India, and I did go to see teachers. And, it's like,
and you did look in their eyes,
yeah, and I fell in love with India, and I love the Indian people and the Indian culture, and just all of it. But what an amazing dream to have so long ago. 30 years or more. So. Yeah.
It's so funny the time that it seems to take, that somehow there's that's like a proof that a certain awareness was already there, a certain understanding of what has proven to be kind of accepted in your heart.
Yeah.
In all of our hearts, Somehow that thing, it unfolded at its own rate. And in a way it was such a gift that they had that precognition. But it's such a perplexity that it just kind of cooked and cooked and cooked in such a long and slow crock pot.
Yeah.
And even still cooking.
Yeah, I think it's never going to stop cooking. I don't think there's any end. I don't think it ever ends. I mean, realization is moment to moment. It's not...
It's a verb, huh?
Yes, it is. Ising.
Yeah.
We're ising.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Burma.
Well, thank you, Richard. I hope we meet again.
We can make it happen. We know how to do it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what shows up on your Never Not Here, where you're being called to go. Who's calling? Presence meeting presence.
Yeah, I'm really interested to find out myself.
Keep the welcome mat out.
Yeah, right. That's the way to do it. That's right.
Great.
So, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste. Burma Cassidy.
Yes.
From Vermont.
Yes.